You are listening to Auto and Operator Radio, the podcast that discusses all things related to IndyCar. Hi, I'm your co-host, Andrew Miller. This is the Honda Indy Toronto Debrief. First take-home point from this weekend is the Toronto street circuit is badass. It's flowing, it's raceable, it's got tons of character. I absolutely love turns 1, 2, that little kink in the back straight, so to speak, and then 3, 4, and 5. That is literally some of the coolest corners in racing. The drivers have to be on the absolute limit to execute a pass there successfully. On that note, we only had 2 cautions. The second of which was caused by Tony Kanaan. Tony Kanaan is definitely going to lose his ride for next year. I almost guarantee it. He'll probably race in the Indy 500, but I think that's all but cemented, or all but the nail in the coffin for TK. Take home point 2, on the opposite side of the spectrum, Helio Castroneves, especially with that brilliant pass down to turn 1 on his teammate Simon Pagenaud, practically 3 wide there with Graham Rahal on the outside. He is doing everything he can to win the championship. They did a great interview conducted by Paul Tracy on NBCSN as kind of a pregame, if you will, to the race, discussing with Helio his motivation and in general his career. And it's like, I think it's pretty obvious that this is Helio's last year. I mean, there are rumors that Verizon are pulling some of their sponsorship dollars out of Roger Penske's team, and being the savvy businessman that Roger Penske is, he knows that he's going to have to pay Joseph Newgarden more money next year because, and we'll get onto this later, Joseph is kicking ass. And Will Power, he's probably getting paid a decent amount of money, and he's probably going to keep him on, see if he can't get another championship under his belt. So, yeah, he's going to have to cut down the 3 cars. So what better way for Helio to go out of his long-winded and very, very successful IndyCar career than winning the championship? That would be great. It would be a great story for the championship itself. And it's created an interesting dynamic this year because you have this guy who's pushing the limits, and because he's experienced, because he's as skilled as he is, and he has that fire under his ass, he's doing good things. He's not a desperate rookie or young driver looking to save his ride and therefore doing desperate things like, Sage Karam. We're talking an experienced guy that's executing perfection, and that turn 1, lap 1 pass was absolute perfection. And I think Pagenaud was genuinely pissed, but in a good way. Yeah, you got me. And I think it just goes to show how much talent Helio has, and maybe he's always needed that extra pressure to get the job done, because he's always been consistent. He's just not always been able to follow through. And this year he kind of started that way, but he's been impressing. No doubt about it. I think he's in contention for the championship. Next take-home point, Joseph Newgarden. Nailed the victory today. Obviously, he got his pit stop bang on, given the caution as a result of Tony Kanaan. That really screwed the front runners at the time. Rahal, of course. Rahal, Pagenaud, Helio Castroneves. So, yeah, got lucky, but, man, he is strong. And it leads me to believe that Joseph Newgarden perhaps has more potential than Simon Pagenaud to win multiple championships. Not just a championship, but successive championships. Not unlike, Scott Dixon or someone on that level. He's 26 years old, yes, he had a Chevy package before coming to Penske, but he adapted so much quicker. And I think outside of the car, maybe more of the difficulties of adapting to a team like Penske comes down to just having so many people around you, so many maybe responsibilities. It might be more of a real job than driving for some of the smaller teams, in that you have almost some corporate responsibilities, debriefs, things of this nature. And I think Joseph has just got that great work ethic. I think he's obviously very friendly and marketable, but he must be really intelligent and really able to work within a bigger machine. And Simon Pagenaud, I think he's certainly come on strong. He won the championship last year, and will be certainly running Joseph Newgarden hard. But I think Joseph certainly is going to take, if you will, that front-running position of the Penske team. And as an extension of our previous point on Helio Castroneves and his time running out due to perhaps lack of sponsorship dollars, perhaps, other reasons as well, it can't be ignored that Alexander Rossi would be a perfect replacement for Will Power in the future as well. Because, again, going back to the savvy businessman that Roger is, he knows that he's going to have to pay Joseph Newgarden more next year. Simon Pageno's probably making a lot. So is Will Power. But Will Power may be forced out in 2019 or something, bringing on board someone like Alexander Rossi for very limited pay compared to, of course, Will Power, who's a veteran in the sport and champion. Especially if they're going to be running 3 cars, maybe on a slightly more limited budget, it would make sense to bring on another young driver since Joseph has matured so quickly. Between Joseph and Simon Pagenaud, they would be able to mold another young driver into the team. Essentially Rossi's very similar age to Joseph Newgarden, but he's like an infant in terms of his time in IndyCar and his experience therein. So that's just something interesting that I thought about for the first time, seeing Alexander Rossi and Joseph Newgarden on the podium and listening to a lot of the subsequent commentary on, hey, these guys are the future of the sport. Of course, guys like Hinch are also the future of the sport, but they're getting to a little bit more of a veteran status, whereas these 25, 26-year-olds, especially in Rossi and Newgarden, you can definitely see their champion potential. And if Andretti, while they have improved, especially, on the road and street circuits, they're still not nearly as consistent as they should be, given the fact they're running 4 cars, given all the talent that they supposedly have in the engineering side of things as well. It should be interesting to see how that develops. There's no doubt about it. I think Rossi, having been seen discussing things with Penske and the Penske trailers is I think the last time he was spotted in the trailers was like in Watkins Glen, I believe. Racer reporter Robin Miller brought that to our attention. But he's a very good fit, I think, for Penske. And though he had a breakthrough podium this weekend, I think these results will simply earn him a better ride unless Andretti is able to develop a little bit better. No doubt about it. Moving on, it's obviously great that James Hinchcliffe gets a podium in his home race. He's a great personality. Rapid fire with Katie, what's her name, on the NBC SN pregame show was really funny. There is no other driver that can probably make the general audience laugh quite as easily as James Hinchcliffe does. I mean, if he is ever not driving in the near future, he needs to be a part of the broadcast. He needs to be a part of IndyCar because he just brings such energy to it. Although I agree with Derek, we need more Canadian drivers into the fold. Perhaps more talented individuals that can really come into the sport even earlier than Hinch did and maybe develop themselves a bit more into championship contention. But we can't write off Hinch completely. He's had a pretty darn good year here for SPM, and I think he's leading the charge there. Obviously, they've won a race in Long Beach, and he's been quick other places, just having bad luck. So who knows? Maybe this partnership between Hinch and SPM and the beefing up of the engineering end of SPM, especially as they're going to be testing, albeit as an objective third party, but testing the new chassis, or not chassis, but bodywork for next year's car. I think that goes to show the strength, probably between the ties of not only IndyCar and SPM, but also SPM and Honda, and their devotion to the sport. So maybe they'll become kind of the leading Honda charge. Who knows? Got a feel for Graham Rahal. He kind of got screwed. I think he was going to be running hard. Pagano said he had the best car of the field. Helio Castroneves, as always, something happens. And Will Power made a silly decision to go or to position himself on the track where he did. Overall, though, great Grand Prix. Really enjoyable to watch. I cannot wait till Mid-Ohio. We have another good race. Aloshin should be back in the car for Mid-Ohio, a race he almost won. What was that, last year? So should be a really good spectacle as well. Graham Rahal will be looking to get another race win there as well. But if you ask me for my prediction, I think it's going to be Joseph Newgarden. I think he's going to go on a tear, man. That kid is going to be letting people know that he's here to stay. He's here at the front, and he's here to stay. Please comment, like, follow. Be looking for our immediate debrief of the Mid-Ohio Grand Prix soon.